I'm going to dig you a small hole, but it is quite wet at the moment in the middle of winter. So, but what we're there are a few worms there.
Oh yeah,
and that's what we like to see. This is the bread and butter of life. It's what sustains us.
Yeah.
And this soil here is 12% organic matter now. And this paddock hasn't had any fertiliser for 20 years, and I don't know before that. We're just relying on that nutrient cycling of the decaying plant material and just the abundance of soil life to cycle those nutrients back to the plant. And we test the soil, and it hasn't lost any fertility as a result. It hasn't changed over time.
And crucial to that is letting the residue from the harvest rot back into the soil.
Oh, absolutely. That's what feeds the soil organisms, essentially. I mean, the living roots, obviously, during the growing season, feed the soil as well. But the actual recycling of nutrients, we don't burn any stubble, we don't export any straw. It all goes back onto the soil. And there was quite a mat here at harvest time, and it's virtually all gone in time for the spring flush of growth, where the roots will start carrying carbon back into the soil to feed the organisms to recycle the nutrients back to the plant. I try to have a 4-year rotation for everything we grow. So we grow wheat, barley, peas, linseeds, sometimes brassicas, and cover crops, which we feed to animals. The worst thing you can have is a soil with nothing growing in it, because it starts to slowly die and oxidise, which releases the carbon. Well, the soil is always oxidising and releasing carbon dioxide, but there's nothing to capture it and take it back down again if you don't have anything growing. So the old idea of having a fallow, which is either a cultivated soil with nothing growing in it, is actually very, very negative to soil life and environmentally, because you start to lose your soil structure as well.
And the soil structure now is so good here that though this is the Canterbury Plains and gets pretty dry in summer, you find there's good water retention here.
Absolutely.
Are you still irrigating though in the summer?
Yeah, we're fully irrigated, and I think because we're in a no-till situation, we're not cultivating out moisture in the spring, and probably we save, I think, that first irrigation, because once the crop starts to grow, it uses moisture, whether it's in cultivated soil or no-till soil. What I have noticed is we have quite a bit of resilience around when the soil starts to get dry. The plants do hang on a lot better, and whatever the explanation is for that, I'm not sure. But we're about building resilience into our soil by building a soil ecosystem, a healthy soil ecosystem.
And the animals play an important role. You've got sheep in the paddock over there, but they would be over here some other time grazing.
Yeah, well, they come in after harvest and they'll eat any weeds that are still there, and many of the weeds are very nutritious. That's their functional role in the ecosystem, is to thrive where nutrients that may not be that abundantly available, they can access them better than any other plant, so they thrive. But that has a role in rebalancing the soil nutrition, I suppose. Yeah. And we've tried that. There's an area in this paddock that was a failed crop of buckwheat in December, because we got a deluge of rain after it was planted and the buckwheat didn't grow. But some oats and other things came up, and a whole lot of weeds, and I let it grow. I actually just thought, well, let's see what happens. And I let it grow, and it grew, about shoulder high almost. And then we mulched it back into the soil. So we'll see what happens this spring, because there is a train of thinking that if you let weeds go, then they'll take over. But I'm sceptical.
Can we broadly define regen agriculture as farming in a way to help restore the health of ecosystems?
The minute you have a definition, you have something that is crystallized, right? And what we need more is being able to adapt and to change. So regenerative agriculture is defined by its outcome. So it's wanting to have a healthier ecosystem. The concept of ecosystem restoration with an ecological hat on comes from a different angle. If we were really honest with ourselves in New Zealand, if we wanted to restore our ecosystem, we wouldn't be farming. Because farming, all of our farming system mostly relies on exotic species. So for me, a better definition of looking at it is a way of farming that aspires to increase the health of the ecosystem. And when I mean the ecosystem, it's everybody in the ecosystem. So the human is part of the ecosystem, and constantly and continuously increase that health.
What are some of the key areas of science that are contributing to this new knowledge?
One of the much talked about topic is the degradation of our soils. It's worldwide, and it's also happening in New Zealand. So a lot of the research projects that are currently being funded have a strong focus on understanding what's going on with soil. Soil biology, soil fertility, chemical processes, and soil carbon. And there's a strong emphasis on the fact that soils have got the potential to store a lot of carbon. And so they might play a role in what is called the carbon drawdown. So taking CO2 out of the atmosphere, so we lower the greenhouse gas effect, and storing carbon more in the soil. That has been put forward as one of the key benefits of regenerative farming. It's probably one of the more contended topics in New Zealand because our soils are already inherently very high in carbon. So our ability to further store more carbon in the soil is being debated and is currently being the topic of research. But also probably one of the major crises that we are facing right now and will continue to face with increasing frequency and intensity is drought and high rainfall that then produces flood. And probably one of the greatest merit of a regenerative system would be its increased ability to deal with that sort of weather. So being able to still retain water in the entire system, like not only in the soil but also in the above ground biomass, and being able to then cope with the drought and shortage of water. So being able to kind of balance the rainfall input.
I see regenerative farming as improving our natural base state. So if you can improve your natural base state and capture more atmospheric nitrogen or hold more water or stop soil running away, then in my view you become more resilient and you're less reliant on inputs, and you get similar outputs. So for us, we'd be foolish to not take any. If we can improve the natural base state of all our farms, then I think we're a lot resilient business when you talk about some of the challenges that we've got in the climate at the moment.
I'm very fascinated about the side-by-side trials you're running here of conventional farming, dairy farming practice versus regenerative. So tell me what you're up to.
For us, it's around putting some facts and figures around regenerative farming. So what we've done here is split one of our dairy farms. 50% of it we run traditionally, like we always have. 50% we run regeneratively, and we have 2 herds, 2 milk fats, 2 profit and loss. We're really comparing the differences.
How is it stacking up in terms of milk volume and milk quality out of the 2 slightly different systems?
If you'd spoken to me 4 years ago and said that you weren't going to use any synthetic fertiliser on a dairy farm in mid-Canterbury, I would have been the first to laugh. Now I'd probably be the last to laugh. We're 3.5 years in now, and we're certainly a lot more content with it now. It's important to get your diversity right, but I wouldn't recommend just going cold turkey in general, but what I am saying is if you increase diversity, we are seeing some good results.
Are you seeing a difference in the condition and quality of cows between the 2 systems?
certainly see a large difference in condition, and especially going into years 2 and 3, we see a real improvement in cow condition and in quality of their coat in the regenerative. We have seen some negatives around somatic cell counts being high in the regenerative, which we found quite interesting. So we're going to do some more work on that this year. And we've seen a large reduction in lameness on the regen side. So last year we had about 10% lame on the traditional side and about 3% on the regen side. So there is some good, there's been some pros and cons in the animal health space, but certainly visually to the eye, the regenerative cows are certainly a lot better conditioned, and we backed it up with condition scoring, and their coat's a lot stronger. Yeah.
All up, Align has got 9 farms, so are you already starting to spread some of the learning from here out onto those other farms, or are you keeping it just to the side-by-side trial here?
No, we're taking it across all our farms. Not a trial, we'll keep the trial here. But certainly any key learnings that we take out of this trial, we go and transcribe that into our other farms, and seen some good and bad results. So it's a lot of the challenges is you can do it with one individual, but can you do it with another individual or another team of people? So that's been quite a good journey, but certainly we're taking any learning we take here, we're taking and putting that across.